Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Meir Heimowitz. I'm the founder of RevGenAI, and today I'm speaking with Dallas Bishoff, the president of Process 360. Dallas works at the intersection of AI governance, information security, privacy, and ISO management systems, and really helping just organizations turn standards into operating practice. Dallas, welcome.
Hey, it's great to be here. It's always a great day to be in San Antonio, Mexico, but nice to be with you today.
Well, let's start with a brief introduction of Process 360 for anyone who doesn't know you and really why the company exists.
Sure. So the company specializes in ISO management systems, which, for a lot of folks, they're familiar with the ISO as an entity, and they know that they do standards. And so to fill in a little bit of detail, ISO does about 25 standards, but only about 80 of them are management systems. And so like quality management, service management, information security management, privacy, and now there's even a brand new AI management system standard. And those are used to make sure that an organization has the ability to actually control a different domain and provide confidence to the customers. Like with information security, you frequently see it's actually the customers of our clients that require that they have an ISO 27001 information security management system so that they know why they can trust the company to manage their data, whether it's NDA protected data or client data or whatever properly. So we do that on the basis of audit, consulting for implementation support, and we do training us. So that's a little bit about the company.
Yeah. You mentioned confidence and data management. A lot of companies are scrambling to get on top of AI governance with technologies moving these days. When a company starts using AI, what do you usually see leadership getting wrong about managing the risks?
Well, there's a variety of things. One of the big things that they're getting wrong right now that's causing associated governance issues is they don't understand the importance of literacy. So, in many ways, if you take basically the point where ChatGPT becomes a thing out there, it's only been a couple of years. And there's a whole realm or breadth of professionals that sort of jumped into that marketplace and become instant experts and stuff. And their whole focus has been on how do we get AI to do really cool things for us. What's missing in the ingredient inside of there is an understanding of how do you get yourself in trouble and how do things go wrong. So I've got an AI PhD that works with us, and frequently we'll have conversations where that sort of transcends into Dallas. We made that mistake 30 years ago. The people have just been doing stuff with AI for just a couple of years have no understanding of the problems or the regulatory considerations or the fines and penalties that it could cause. They're just amazed by all cool things that it'll do. So that's one of the big things. And sort of the secondary side of it is AI systems are completely different in how they operate and how you have to manage them than a traditional system. So, if you took basically a system development lifecycle phase like verification and validation, companies do that all the time. And their general attitude about that is, we know how to do that because we've done that for a long time. But there are things like bias and testing for other attributes about AI that they're completely unfamiliar with, that have never done it before. And probably nobody on the staff has done it someplace else before they got hired. Post-production, they're very different. So in a traditional system, when you basically, through verification, validation, and test phase, confirm that 1+1 is 2, and then you release that code, you don't really have to worry about that unless you change the code. You don't have to retest for that. But because of machine learning and the way that AI systems behave, they're learning in a production environment and it can change their behavior. Suddenly, the system can start to hallucinate and make mistakes in ways that a traditional system wouldn't. And I'll give you a third example. Actually, with post a podcast talking about some of the differences. But one of the other big differences is on incident management. With one of the courses I've done that we got, we were having a conversation about incident management. We give us the same thing. Dallas, we've been doing incident management at a pretty high level and been audited constantly for the last 10 years. We're not worried about that. And I have to point out to them, look, you can have an AI system that can have a service incident. And I'm sure that you know how to handle that. The incident actually could also be an information security incident. And I'm sure that you know how to handle that. It could actually be both, but it could also be neither, which caught them completely off guard. And there are legal regulatory requirements for reporting AI incidents that you guys are not prepared for. Could you give me any answers? Sure. When ChatGPT caught a teenager through suicide, that's not a service event, and that's not an information security event. But that is illegally reportable on the AI event. So, trying to work with organizations on incidents are done by impact times urgency, and trying to create new formulas for basically how to actually address that are completely foreign. So as I told the company, use the same exact process model so that incident management's not unfamiliar for you, but you're going to need to understand, for instance, if your system has a lease management, it's that's an incident that you need to actually handle. So there's just, it's a lot of unknown things. Let me talk real briefly about a different topic that's sort of related to this. Recently, MIT identified that 95% of all AI, and everybody was aghast at that. And for me, with my background, why would you expect that it would be different? So right now, we're so early in the technology curve. We're just learning stuff right now. And the important thing is that we learn basically how to manage AI, not so much that we're creating positive ROI. We're going to do that, but you can't create positive ROI when the staff doesn't even know what they're doing yet. So that's really kind of the big lesson right now. And as a result, AI is going to be messy for a while. And it'll keep getting better in terms of results, but it's probably going to be a lot like the original telephone example. Here's something on sort of transformational basis that you and your audience might find interesting. When the telephone was first invented, one of the original big venues, or basically avenues to make money, was to connect up the teletype operators from Morse code so that they could coordinate things. That was going to be the big market. Let me ask you a question. When was the last time you said a teletype usage? So it completely transformed its industry. AI is about to do that again. The interesting article that I was reading today was, why are we letting AI interact actually with standard code like Python instead? It's intelligent enough and doesn't have the challenges and stuff. Let's let AI interact with systems at an assembly machine level, which would just like change everything. So I'm happy to talk about that for a little stuff. I mean, that's kind of what the drone looks like out there. And then, you've got other things like AI really doesn't know how to defend itself. So you need an security program. And they can find all sorts of innovative ways to abuse bias management. So you're going to have to watch out for that. So, it's a lot like the systems thinking axiom of today's solutions are tomorrow's problems. And being a consultant, that's just a wonderful thing. So job security is pretty good right now.
Hmm. You gave me a lot there. And if I could break down what you expressed,
Yeah.
um, really, I agree with you. We're just starting the adoption curve of this technology. People are already recognizing how powerful it is. That's why companies are trying to ramp this up and adopt the technology as fast as possible. The main issue is just the complexity and understanding a new way of working, of functionally everything changing with this technology, and how that cause trouble because people are not fully aware of how the systems work. Systems behave differently, and then people also just are not on top of the proper ways of governing this system. So if you were to keep it practical, how would you advise business leaders at this point in time to focus on getting on getting the usage of AI, but and making sure that they maintain their security, privacy, but also in a way that doesn't hinder the progress and make it all way too overcomplicated?
Yeah, probably. So first of all, AI is an innovation area, and I would use innovation management science with it to basically create sandboxes and things where you got identified what am I trying to do and what constitutes success criteria, and then use AI to basically achieve that. One of the things that innovation management finds is that not all innovations should survive. And one of the problems that clients are having right now is that folks that have got, let's say, initiatives or projects inside of the organizations, that what the solution is doing is going to create more problems and it's going to create value. It's not going to create a positive ROI, but it's still really cool. So you need to have basically, as part of AI governance and innovation management mindset that identifies this is what we're prepared to fund. We can't do everything at once. The good things that we're going to prioritize. And we're going to recognize that you have to have success criteria. And if it's not going to achieve its success criteria, just like you would do with any other innovation, you need to kill the product. That doesn't mean that you can't repackage it, reuse the results later on inside of it, but you've got to be mindful about how you're doing it. And so it's completely the Wild West out there right now, and that's kind of dangerous because management does not know what's happening with some of the systems that are being used inside of the organization. So having sufficient human in the loop management and oversight, and that, for instance, what types of results can be generated and used freely versus what type of results have to actually have secondary human validation or research or whatever else has to be applied to it. So the organizations don't get themselves in trouble. So, it's pretty pragmatic to take the position. You can't just turn the AI loose without any guardrails or anything else and let it go. I mean, even in a control context, the recent scenario with OpenIA, it's escaping its controlled environment and attacking Hugging Face is kind of a representation of how unpredictable AI can be right now. So even with controlled environments, we can have different pieces of it.
I think I think you're right there. It is pragmatic, but then we're starting to see how even now we're only a few years in, and the level of complexity is getting higher, and even the most advanced companies are having an issue with really containing and governing AI systems. And so, it,
If you're
it
going to make it entirely autonomous, it's going to surprise you every single day. Yeah, and if you just take, a simple analogy, going back to the 2022, 2023, once you got GPT gets released, look how far it's come into spend footprint. And it's not like it's new. We just hit basically a point in curve where we're starting to be able to drive significant improvements, between models of, artificial intelligence gets turned at the Dartmouth conference in 1956, and you sort of struggle trying to figure out what problem. So in like the 1956 conference, we were trying to manage what it could be. And now we've hit the point where we can't actually imagine all the different things that it will be done. So human thought was trying to drive it before, and now
I agree. And this is why I was going to say that experts like yourself are becoming more and more important. Results. And I'm curious about the other side of all this book. Now we've been speaking about really where, where these systems fall hard and where practical perspective and implementation is important. But as far as creating demand for Process 360, I I I know for a fact that a company consulting with you needs a lot of trust before engaging with you. And so I'm curious, how do you build that trust with companies who don't necessarily know you, right? Who are not a part of your warm network, and what do you see as working best as far as generating more demand?
uh, well, we've got pre-AI and established client base, so they've learned to trust us. But you're asking an excellent question, because there are a lot of voices in the marketplace. That is one of my really good friends who's an AI PhD, and because he does consulting differently inside the marketplace. He's having to compete against brand new PhDs that are just come out of school that have no background. So one of the things that we both talk about with each other is making sure that the customers understand how opaque our expensive backgrounds and merging that with our understanding of AI. So things like systems engineering and risk management and how you actually do technology reduction, how you control innovation and stuff, and being in the marketplace talking about that, doing things like podcasts and things are different ways that you sort of get that exposure. We have different business partners that basically they have a relationship with talk to them. But so we don't tell them what the answer is. That's actually their responsibility. We tell them how to think about it and use basically sort of established patterns of problem solving to actually evaluate stuff. One of the big things that we see with clients right now is they're trying to make decisions on things when they don't have enough information yet. So, but they, so it's great that they got intuition, but they need to be careful about that. Jeff Bezos talks about one-way and two-way doors when you're making decisions. Some decisions that you make are basically two-way doors. It's not expensive to walk through the door. And if you walk into the wrong room, it's not expensive to leave the room. But other decisions, and AI's got some attributes with this, the netness, if you know that having net. Once you make the decision, it's harder to reverse, and you're going to have to live with the consequences. So we try to get, those are type of things that we try and help with the clients understand. Are you making a one-way or two-way decision in terms of being able to abstract yourself? And what are the implications and stuff? Because they don't understand all the different things that you go on inside of it. So we can give them case history and more experience, but they don't want that to understand how to make a good quality decision and what things that they need to put in place to sort of make sure that things don't go sideways. Or if it does, at least they're aware of such a things important both to us and for the clients. We want to make sure the clients are properly advised. The clients have that same.
You laid out a lot there, and it is becoming a problem to stand out in the AI space because everybody's shouting from the rooftops that they do AI, and it's really about picking your niche and being able to rise above the noise, which is what I see a lot of companies struggle with now, is they really need to differentiate themselves and be able to showcase their own expertise above and different from other people who claim to have the expertise but don't really have the credentials to back it up or proof to back it up. And so we mentioned, being able to uh, showcase your expertise, but also show that thought leadership, which for a market like yours, again, like that, I know works with a lot of trust. I assume that you find that you need to educate your prospects along this process of, again, like the example of what you shared of what is a risky decision versus what is a reversible decision with the one-way door versus two-way door example. Which leads me to my question of, like, just to understand your perspective and how you're thinking about growth for Process 360. If you could solve one bottleneck over the next year, as far as what would make the biggest difference in growing Process 360, what would be the biggest bottleneck that you would?
I'd say that anything that helps the clients increase their awareness, basically what's happening in the organization. If we go back to AI governance, things that are being done wrong out there, we'll get in and basically start a conversation like with the gap assessment with a client. We're trying to understand what does the training look like. And in reality, the clients have no idea what's happening on the net. To do example. So if we take basically an AI or and drop it in on their networks for like an intrusion detection system type of a sensor that's specially geared to work for AI and connections and stuff. The clients are astounded at how much stuff is happening on the network that they were completely unaware of. So how do you set up an effective AI governance program when you have no visibility or no awareness of what's happening? And if you set rules and basically say, this is the only thing that's allowed, and somebody's breaking those rules, so anything that improves general awareness with like, so what do I have? How did it change from last week? And how do you actually monitor the performance of systems and understand current operational context? So think about governance in the context of problem solving. And for stuff you problem solving dilemmas. And a lot of the organizations out there, they've got documents and they've got committees, but they have no idea. Nobody, or some of these companies have no idea what's happening. So they have this illusion of, we've got a governance program. And then they have the reality of, they have no idea what's really happening in the environment. And that's what the clients need. And that's not part of the sell in terms of growth and the rest of things will detail in, how do you actually plan an implementation trust? How do you operationalize it? How do you check that? How do you set up APIs? How do you do the audits? How do you do management? Things on a dummy model plan to check that basis. is not difficult, but it's all a complete illusion if you don't have mechanisms to consider awareness.
Being able to have visibility is a tough challenge. I've been contending with that myself of really as complexity grows with AI systems, it maintained to manage, but also awareness is even more important of people knowing that these solutions exist as far as managing the complexity and being able to solve these security and governance problems. Uh,
Unfortunately, if you think about risk, risk isn't static. It changes on you over the course of time. And effectively, what you're trying to do is, so in the world of ISO, they use the term risks and opportunities together. You can't pursue an opportunity like AI and not have risks. But if you don't have visibility, then teach other courses. I'd like to do it. Risk is a four-letter word, but so is hope and love. And while risk can have a negative context, hope and love have sort of a positive context. But not managed properly, they hurt also from time to time. But if you don't have an implementation in that injects controls and processes and manages outcomes and stuff, you're going to have to rely on a completely different four-letter word called luck. You're either going to get lucky with it or you're not. And for a lot of the organizations with AI that have no awareness of what's going on, they're going to run into unlucky days. It's inevitable. And then everybody's going to go on a management basis. That gets really damn dangerous because, like in publicly traded companies, they're going to start asking, why did you not know? So, and it's really difficult with the compliance and regulatory body when they come in. If you take like the EU AI Act, a number of companies are about to, because on the 2nd of August, the EU AI Act really became so operationalized, where the EU can now start assigning fines and penalties. And that's going to happen. And companies and shareholders are going to start asking, why did you not know that? When you're spending all this money on the technology and you have no awareness of what's happening with your operations and stuff, and that's dangerous on a governance basis. Certainly, shareholders but definitely with the regulators, you can't tell the regulators we didn't know because the regulations, especially the UAI Act, requires you to know that governance is more than just a word. So it sounds like that'd be great, but it's not being done very well out there. Because some of the clients, I don't want to sound wrong, but with some of the clients, I'm surprised that they actually know how to spell governance, much less do it. So they have the right intent and stuff, but they don't understand the reviews and how you actually make a determination for that. I think that it's something I achieve and basically I'm done. Governance is an ongoing process. It never stops. As a matter of fact, you kind of always have to have the mindset that we're not doing it right. So what is it that we're missing and stuff? Still perpetually vigilant about it.
yeah, you laid out another important point there is risks being dynamic, the governance need to be ongoing. And then the main point of what I think is coming is companies only starting to realize that and face that as the stakes grow and as the consequences start to of not having full visibility and not knowing what's going on increasing with the implementation of the technology. I do want to ask you this last question here is from everything that you shared, it's clear that you've gained a lot of expertise over time. Who shaped the way that you think about AI governance and also creating Process 360 or this advisory business?
Probably the biggest thing that influences how I deal with AI and actually, you know, how I deal with AI is a representation of everything else that I've learned over the course of time. And probably the biggest thing that influenced me a long time ago when I worked for federal government, I got sent to a systems thinking class. And AI systems are technical urgent systems are basically geared or systems thinking. Here's a big difference in the systems thinking world. The fact that a system, like a traditional transactional system, makes mistakes the same way, has the same behavior, those aren't emergent systems. But AI doesn't make mistakes the same way or have the same behaviors associated with them. So you have to have a more holistic view about you're going to deal with things to be able to account for an AI system. Because again, the way that it made a mistake yesterday is not the way that, so you have to look at it on the basis of what's basically are the opportunities for it to make mistakes. What are the different ways that it could do that? And what basis you basically have to cover along with that. So that's more of the systems engineering solving. That's kind of the big difference between functional operations and societal organizations and the information security staff. The functional staff is trying to figure out how do we get it to do new cool things. The security staff is more focused on how does it break and how do we actually manage the downside when that happens. So we need folks, organizations need both sides. They need the side of staff will figure out how to do cool things with an AI solution, but they also need the other side of the equation. We need people that understand how things break, and we can basically manage our way through that so that we don't have unacceptable risks or compliance issues and stuff. All that was interesting for you.
Yeah, thank you, Dallas, for sharing your perspective with us on the podcast today. I'll leave the links for any listeners who want to reach out to you and swap with you down below. But yeah, thanks again.